Hey besties!
Hey,
Welcome back for another episode of the Hello Bes-tea podcast. I'm Maggie.
I'm Tashima.
It's our first book club
Yay!
episode!
We're finally here. We're so excited.
We've been talking about this for a little while.
Yeah.
So,
Welcome.
Welcome to our chat. Today we're going to be discussing The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So, we hope you guys have either listened to it or read it. If you have not, and you don't like spoilers, probably not going to be the show for you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then go read it or listen to it and then come back.
Correct.
And then let us know what you think.
Yes.
Because this episode is going to be, we are actually in depth discussing the book.
Correct. Our thoughts and everything. So we don't want to have to censor ourselves. So be warned. Hashtag spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why we want to do it at the end of the month so that everybody, regardless of how life is going, everybody has basically a month to read or listen to the books. And we would really love if you guys have any suggestions, recommendations of some books that we can start putting into the queue. It isn't just Maggie and I picking books and you guys are at our mercy.
Mm-hmm.
We want this to be a collective experience. So whatever your recommendations are, we'll basically, as we start getting them, we're just going to probably at the end of our episode, we'll just draw and then announce whatever the book is for the next episode.
Right.
So that everybody, again, has plenty of time to read or listen to it.
Yeah. And stick around for the end of this episode because we're going to announce our next book club selection for the end of next month.
Until we start getting in the suggestions, then we'll just pick.
We'll just pick stuff we like.
Yeah.
All right. So, first things first, overall, what did you think about this book?
I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Yeah, I would definitely give it, I always feel like there's room for improvement, so I'm going to say a solid 4.6 out of 5.
That's solid.
Yeah.
That's solid. I would give it a solid 5. And I also always think there's room for improvement, but I don't think there's, if I had to change something, the only thing was, it was a long book. I think it was 16 hours long or something like that. Yeah. And it took about 5 hours before it really took off. Yeah. I think she did a great job of developing Addie's character so that you could understand the situation that she was in. And I didn't necessarily lose interest, but I don't think it needed to happen for as long as it did.
Agreed. It took a little bit to get to the meat.
I was like a few hours in, okay, how many more guys is she going to sleep with? And they wake up and not remember who she is. Like, I get it. I think I kind of felt like, okay, I get it. What's going to happen here?
Yeah. Trust us a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be the only thing I would change about it if I had to change anything. But the author, so after I read the book, I went down the rabbit hole on it. So V.E. Schwab is the author. And we've talked about Big Magic before, which is Liz Gilbert's book about creativity. And she said that she was listening to Liz Gilbert's book. Shout out, she's a major advocate of audiobooks because she said, as an author, I have to read a lot and I don't have time to always sit and read. So for an author to say it's cool to listen to audiobooks, it just felt more validating, I guess is what I'm saying about that. But she was saying how Liz Gilbert mentioned the thought of ideas. And if you don't pursue an idea, it could go to someone else. And then they end up doing the idea because when you had it, you didn't do anything with it. And she said it took her 9 years, I believe it was, to write this book.
Wow.
And after reading the book and then hearing that, it just made me feel like whatever it took her to put it out of her head on paper, I'm just so thankful that this book exists. Yeah. I felt that strongly about it.
And
I love this book.
Thank you for taking your time.
Yes.
Because I feel even though in the beginning the pace was a little slow, and I think I probably would have lost patience with it had I read it, to be honest with you. Like I would have gotten, it feels like by the time things really got rolling, it was a little bit like almost halfway. Seeing that on a physical book, I probably would have been like, what?
I get it. Yeah.
What's happening here? But yeah, she definitely took her time. The imagery, the alliteration was definitely on point.
She handpicked the narrator, and I think she did a great job. She said, I understand, as an avid audiobook listener, I understand that a narrator can make or break a story. And she's not lying. Because I can't tell you how many books I've sampled. I'm like, well, can't listen to that one. That won't have to be an actual read. I love the narrator's voice. I think she did a great job with everything.
She did a really great job.
Yeah, doing the French accent when she needed to, and then the transition of Addie's voice where she kind of lost the French accent throughout the years. I think she paid a lot of attention to that.
Yeah, she did a really good job. So do you want to do like a brief premise? Because there are some people who probably haven't read it, won't read it, and they just don't mind us talking about it. So do you want to kind of summarize?
I'll let you summarize.
Okay, I'll try. Let me know if I'm off the mark.
I'll interject when I need to.
So basically, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is about a young woman, like early adolescence. No, late adolescence. She was like early 20s.
Early to mid 20s.
Who basically,
French woman.
Yes, a French woman, like
1700s.
What? So why don't you just do?
Sorry.
Golly, do it, Maggie.
No, go ahead.
No.
Okay.
No.
So it's about a, as she said, early 20s French woman in the 1700s who basically makes a deal with the devil. So back in her time, you know, old school, forced to get married. Yeah.
With a demon.
Forced to get married, have kids, like could see what her life was going to be like and wanted no parts of it. She wanted to live. So the book opens up with her running away from her wedding that was arranged for her. And she basically has a relationship with an older woman in the village, an older single woman who talks to spirits and kind of does things like that. This woman told her, don't ever pray to the gods that answer after dark. So there was like a ritual that she would do when she would pray to gods where she would put things in the ground as like a sacrifice to the gods.
Like an offering.
Like an offering.
Like throwing it in the lake, making prayers. But these are like to the good gods.
Correct.
Offering something in hopes that they would like grant a wish or answer a prayer.
So she basically runs into the woods day of her wedding with her wedding dress on, starts praying to these gods and saying, basically, please get me out of this. Like, whatever needs to happen, just get me out of this. She's not getting a response. So a demon shows up. She finds out later this was one of the gods after dark.
Yeah. And she ran so far into the woods that she didn't realize when the sun started to go down.
Correct.
She didn't realize it was actually night. So then when this demon did answer, shortly after she realized, this is the moment she realized she fucked it.
I know. And he basically asks her what she wants. And she goes on this whole tangent about what she wants, what she doesn't want. Sounds like he's not going to make a deal with her. And she says, like, I want to live. Just let me have a chance to live my life. And you can have my soul when I'm done with it. So he kisses her.
Makes the deal.
Seals it in blood. Bites her tongue. Makes the deal. She just feels herself fall into darkness. She gets up, she's wearing the same outfit, she goes to her parents' house thinking that everybody's going to be upset with her, obviously, she ran away from her wedding, and finds out that her parents have no idea who she is. So that's basically the premise of it. So the deal that she made that she didn't really realize that she was making was that she was granted eternal life, she does not age, but the flip side of it is no one remembers her.
After they leave the room, or after midnight, they automatically forget who she is. And then also she's not able to speak or write her name.
Correct.
She's not able to make any memories. She can't keep anything.
She can't make a mess.
Yeah, she is not allowed to leave a print on the planet in any kind of way. She is invisible.
Yes. So she can't die, but she can suffer.
Correct.
So that's basically the premise of be careful what you ask for, I guess, would be like a good moral of the book. Be careful what you ask for. Right. And the book goes on kind of doing this character development for Addie and what her life is like now, having no one remember her, no family, no friends, navigating life as someone who can't be remembered. She can't get a job, can't get a phone,
no means of being able to hold a place to stay.
Correct.
Because nobody remembers renting her a room.
Right.
She's not able to have a job because nobody, literally, they leave the room, they come back, and they have forgotten who she is.
It's starting from scratch. She's had people
for
who she's
hundreds
met
of years.
15 to 20 times, and she can kind of It's like Groundhog Day for her all the
Correct.
time.
And she constantly finds herself having to manipulate and redo situations to get to the
Like a
things
better
that she
result.
wants.
Yep.
Correct. Yeah.
So finally, several hours into the book, she goes into a bookstore one day and she meets this guy named Henry. She attempted to steal a book, and just throughout her life, just not being able to hold on to anything or have anything really work for anything because she can't, like, she's resorted to stealing and got very good at it. This guy runs after her because her whole thing is like, he'll forget about me as soon as I walk away.
Right.
So she's gotten very used to being able to just like steal and not have to pay for it. And
or borrow.
And this guy chases her out of the bookstore and essentially is like, what are you doing? And she's shocked because she's like, how does he even remember me? Like, usually people forget about me when I leave. And he said, I remember you. And that just sparked this whole...
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Which is awesome.
It was awesome.
It was great. I mean, I read the little snippet, so I knew I knew she would eventually meet somebody who would remember her. So I was expecting that, and I felt like the whole bookstore thing, like you knew exactly who he was. But yeah, I know you have some questions. So
I do.
Let's get into the questions.
I do. Okay. Just in general, did you like Addie?
I did. I think that her character was developed very well. I feel I don't think there was a time where she did something that just seemed like it didn't make sense. Like nobody would ever do that.
Right.
Like everything that she did made sense to me.
I loved her too. I think she was a strong woman. I think it was amazing that she was way ahead of her time in terms of the strength of, I don't want to conform and this isn't the life that I want for myself. And I don't know, when her and Luke would get into it, how she would say her little slick stuff to him, knowing he's got like so much power, he could basically do anything. The fact that she still would like talk shit was kind of respectable.
Yeah.
Did you think that Luke loved Addie?
Yes.
Luke is the name of the demon, by the way. So, that's something we need to say too. So this turns into like a 300-year thing. Again, she doesn't age. And Luke would come to her once a year on their anniversary of the night to where they made the deal and basically ask her, like, you ready to give up now?
Right.
And his whole goal was to make her life as difficult as possible because his goal is to gain her soul. So he said, what? So I'm just supposed to give you eternal life, make everything easy on you? You'll never give me your soul. Like, obviously, I want you to suffer so that I get what I want type of thing. But over the course of the book, you see this, like, they actually were in a relationship for several years. So there's this kind of like toxic tension between those two. Yeah. But do you think he really loved her?
I do. I do. I think that over time he found, like, I think he admitted to in the story that he did, it was nicer to have a companion and to have something to look forward to, regardless on being a demon or not. I think that he met his match, and just the idea of her being so headstrong, I think that was like a huge challenge, and then a challenge turned into comfort of familiarity. Especially, I mean, even for him being a demon, he was always alone.
Correct.
But now he had this person.
And he makes deals all the time, but his deals are usually a lot shorter term. Correct. So, like, they've been together for a long time.
A long time.
Very long time.
I would have loved to see, I mean, obviously, I've mentioned in the past, I am a spicy book connoisseur. So I would have loved to have a little bit more in terms of their relationship and have their tension lead to a little bit more. Because it felt like a little brushed over, like just, oh, you know, memories of us, and then it's just like, I don't know, it just felt a little quick. Just went a little bit more.
There are more like references than anything instead of like detailed scenes.
Right. She's like, I'm gonna lay all this out for you, but for this juicy part, use your imagination.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Basically. Yeah. Okay. So Addie slips into the homes and even the clothes of people from all walks of life. Which abode did you like the best? If Addie borrowed your house, what would she enjoy the most about the contents of your cupboards and your closets?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is such a good question.
It is. It is. So Addie would like meet people and find out they're going out of town and then just go to their
Live in their
house and
house.
just basically live there. Whether they had bellman or doorman, again, like as soon as she's out of sight, people don't remember who she is.
Correct.
So, you know, that's kind of how she had to live. So.
Right. Seeing that she was a really big lover of arts, I think she would probably think my home is cozy. I think she would just like, I could see her playing the record player, snuggling up on the couch, reading a book, and drinking the wine that she was drinking and just feeling like,
yeah.
That's how I think.
I think she would appreciate the candles and the scent and stuff in my house because she lit a few candles places that she went. And same thing, I think she would enjoy the wine, chocolate. She would find some good snacks in there. So I have a couple little like silk robes she'd probably like to slip into and stuff. So I think she'd make herself pretty cozy.
Such a good question.
It is a good question, right? I knew you'd like that one. Living with a bank account or phone or an address, Addie is reduced to pilfering and theft to quell her physical suffering. Is it a blessing or a curse that she only has to worry about momentary suffering, not survival? What new appreciation do you have for the ordinary things you count on to make it through difficult times?
Like when she woke up and she was on the cart with all of the corpses, like just shelter in general. Like I started to really appreciate, wow.
When she said the lady across the street screamed and stuff, like, because they just saw a person come alive. Can you imagine?
Yeah. So just the idea of not having to worry about that.
Right.
That just feels like a very basic thing that's like, okay, phew.
Yeah.
Is that the things that she had to do in order to survive, it just, mentally I could see how that would just really push you to the limit. Sleeping on, and also her feeling it. So it's not like she didn't age. She got a cut, her cut would heal.
Right.
And when she was walking for miles and miles in the sun, she felt the pain of the sunburn, although she didn't have like the actual physical burn.
Correct.
And she didn't have blisters on her feet, but her feet felt as if she had just walked and she had blisters on her feet. So that part to me, for Luke, he knew how to play with words.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
What about, I don't know if that even answers the question, but
no, it did answer the question. I think just the simple idea of being able to say your name. Yeah. She couldn't say her name. She would try to tell people her story and everything, and she couldn't. Or just writing your name and not being able to do that is just something we really take for granted. It would be really weird not to be able to talk about your past with anyone. Like, she paid a huge price.
She did.
She paid a huge price. And the first time she went to the docks was just like, you imagine what being intimate with someone is going to feel like. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Luke is a demon. He is like the devil, basically, god of darkness. But he takes human form, and he takes human form in what she imagined to be her perfect guy.
Yes, from childhood.
Correct. So she used to make sketches of like someone with jet black hair, like emerald green eyes, and this is how he was presented to her. Yeah. So, it's just like, damn, that's cold-blooded. And then the one scene where she got too slick out of the mouth and he's like, oh, you forgot yourself. And he like made her old and decrepit. Right. That was insane.
He was a little bit, she would get flipped and it wouldn't have been the same if he didn't put her in her place. Right. Like, obviously not that I would want suffering for her, but the way that she used to talk to him, I could see why somebody's like, let me remind you who I am. Right. And I'll show you suffering.
Let's not forget who holds the power.
Stay in your place. But it didn't waver her.
Yeah. So when she finally meets Henry, you said that you kind of saw that coming. So when Henry told her that he also made a deal with Luke, did you see that coming?
No. So I had a suspicion something was fishy when he would just get so depressed and in this funk, and he just had this really weird thing about time. And I wrote in my notes that like his feeling and his description and struggle with, do you ever feel like there's just not enough time? That really resonated with me. You know, like just as we age and stuff, like you're just more aware of your own mortality.
Right.
And it just, I was like, wow, this is real. Like this is how real people feel. I just didn't understand why he was so much in a funk and so obsessed with it. Like she would just describe him being very happy, but then like have this flash of just like all of a sudden his smile would just be gone.
Right.
And that I didn't understand. And then the whole him making a deal, I was like, what?
Yeah. And for a year.
What?
When she's like, he couldn't for a year, but it's like he was about to commit suicide. And for him to say like, I would have done it for less at that time, it just was a real portrait of the things that people do when they are so low.
And they feel like they have no options. But he also didn't think, he was so drunk that he didn't think this
think it
was
real.
even real.
Right.
So he's like, ha 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 ha.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just also, to me, that put a, not that I thought Luke was the good guy, he's obviously a protagonist, but that part really put a bad taste in my mouth because I feel like that was cowardly of Luke to take advantage. Like you can see now he takes advantage of people when they're at their lowest. And you knew this man's heart in terms of him not really thinking that this was real. And saying, yeah, okay, a year, you got that.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's a demon and I expect him to do that. I think what I wondered about that situation is if he didn't step in, Henry might have jumped out, you know, he might have committed. True. Could you not have just taken his soul then? He has to willingly give it to him. So that was what I first thought. And then I realized that's why you did that, because that's the only way you're going to get it.
Right. True.
I just thought it was weird, and this is kind of like jumping away. So when he bought Addie the place in New Orleans, was it, where he got there the house? And he's like, oh, baby, you go on home. I got to go, like, get this soul real quick. And then he went to the lady and...
Yeah, that's weird. That part was a little random to me. Like, I would have rather her, instead of making it seem like they tried to play house, I would have rather her have, like, some kind of love affair more than playing house.
It was just very...
It seemed a little random.
It's like, is he real? Like, can you really feel him? Because the first time she was with Henry, she made it a point to say several times, like, no one else fit her perfectly the way Luke did. So there was this kind, even though it was toxic and even though it was whatever, like, there was this, like, he was exactly what she wanted, just a horrible person, basically.
But he can also make himself to be whatever you want him
to be. Correct.
So, of course.
Yeah, exactly. He can form himself whatever way. But something I found intriguing, and I would have liked the author to go into more detail about this, and maybe she did and I just didn't see the interview. But I wonder how she picked the figures that she did. Like the scene with Beethoven. The scene with Frank Sinatra. Yeah. Like, I'm like, were there rumors of them selling their souls to the devil, or did she just pick them because they're just super popular people of that time? But it implied that they had deals with the devil kind of thing, and, you know.
Which is why they were able to achieve, like, I think it alluded to kind of like the suspicions that we have now.
That's what it made me think about.
I think stuff like that has always kind of been around, which probably speaks to some of its truth, and that there is always a price to pay for all success.
Right.
And even if you're not making a deal with the devil, you are still paying a price. So.
Everything comes with a price. Yeah. So towards the end of the book, did it end the way that you thought it would? And okay, what did you think Addie was going to do when she wanted to sit with Luke? Did it surprise you?
Like when she went to, okay, so you asking,
like, after she found out Henry's deal, the time that he had left, and she wanted to have a meeting with Luke, what did you think she was going to propose to him at that meeting?
I thought that she was going to give up her soul.
That's what I thought.
To save his. I never saw it coming that she made the deal. Like, I thought she was going to surrender her soul.
That's what I thought too.
But at that point, he didn't want it.
Yeah, and she knew that.
Which is so romantic.
She said that he seemed like disappointed, like she could tell in his eyes that, yeah.
I love the ending. I don't think that it could have ended any other way other than the way that it did.
I think it was an amazing
Any other
ending.
way would have been disappointing. Like if it would have been, and she surrendered her soul and she slumped in the corner and Henry got to live out the rest of his days in ignorant bliss and never having remembered or something like that, I would have just been like, damn. Yeah. Like, no. I know. Can't end like that. Yeah. But for her to, like, just go on living with him and being able to read her book and then knowing that she made her mark, but you know, when he said that she was very sneaky and tricky for having made her mark in art.
Oh, we didn't mention her freckles. Yeah. Which is a big point of the book too.
Right. Yeah. So she was basically like famous. She was in famous paintings. She was influenced a lot of businesses, bars,
she was like music, a muse for artists.
She was a muse. And it just, I think that was really amazing.
Yeah. She had 7 distinct freckles on her face that people would always tell her looked like a constellation on her face. So she, like, again, like you said, she met many different musicians and things like that. I thought that it was cool that both her and Henry were bisexual.
I thought that was interesting.
That was an interesting twist to me.
Yeah. Very modern.
Very, very modern indeed. I did laugh a little bit about, what's his name? Robbie? Robbie's relationship with Henry. And he's like, yeah, Robbie came around the corner and this guy was basically mounting him. And
it was a little like those kind of things. I was like, okay.
Oh, do you want to explain Henry's curse?
It just sounded like he has a very low self-esteem. And he was in a relationship with a female who pretty much was out of his league, so his family and friends thought. And he was oblivious to that, decided to propose. She turned him down and basically said, you're just not enough.
Right.
You know, you're too blah. And so he was super devastated. And embarrassed, got super drunk, was about to end it, and then that's when he met Luke, who then let him make a deal. He didn't think Luke was real, and he was like, okay, fine. You know, Luke basically was like, well, what do you want? And he's like, please say, I want to be loved. And so he made a deal for a year, got a watch as his talisman or something like that. And yeah, the clock started ticking from there. But then basically everybody that he met would love him, but not like necessarily be oogly googly all over him.
But their eyes would like mist over. He would see like a white fog in their eyes when they looked at him.
And they would just see whatever it is that they wanted to see. So some people were just very attracted to him and actually in love with him, but then some people would just they would accept everything that he said. Anything that he said, they would agree. If he said something negative, they would say, don't say that. You're amazing. Yeah. You're successful. He's like, I work at a bookstore. But you're amazing at what you do. Like they just saw whatever, everything was good.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, he really enjoyed it. And then towards the end, he really was just looking for honesty.
Correct.
And that's that wordplay.
Yeah. He wanted people to love him for him.
For him, which he lost when he made his deal.
Yeah. So he was basically a black sheep in his family, too. So he had an older brother who was a doctor, a sister who was like into art or something.
Yeah.
Basically, he had never found his thing. Like he'd start something and then wouldn't finish it and was happy working at a bookstore, but other people thought he should have been doing something better with his life. And then, you know, he makes his deal and now everyone thinks he's the bomb.com, including his family. I thought it was interesting, the thing that, well, besides her stealing the book, he noticed that Addie's eyes didn't like fog over when she saw him. So that alone, like he's kind of gotten used to people's eyes glazing over and seeing like, okay, they're not seeing me for me. They're seeing whatever it is they want to see in me. She must see me for who I am. And then him telling her, I remember you.
Yeah.
I thought that like gave me chills towards the end of the book where she's at the bookstore and she overheard the people saying like, "Oh, did you read Addie LaRue or whatever?" Because no one was able to say her name, and now she hears people saying her name. And then she goes, flips the book, and like the inscription is, "I remember you." I just felt like,
I
aw.
know.
And he didn't want to put his name on it or anything because he
Yeah.
wanted them to be her words. And I love that he's ended the book the way he did because he said anything else would have been like
It
it
would have
wasn't
been
her
his story,
story. Right.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was where I put in here, when that happened, I wrote, if I wasn't at volleyball, I would have cried like a freaking baby.
Yeah.
So I
I
was
did
listening to the
cry.
audiobook while I was at my kiddo's volleyball
Hmm.
practice, and I just wished that I was home at that moment because
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my God, this is so
I know.
I thought I honestly because Luke is such a trickster with words.
Hmm.
I was a little bit apprehensive that he was going to do a little loophole thingy, but the fact that he allowed Henry to remember her with everything that happened and end it just like, okay, you're mine
Hmm.
until I don't want you, basically. I appreciated that, and I think that just showed you how much he actually did love her.
Hmm. I thought it was interesting as much as her and her mom seem to have a difficult relationship,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a hardcore, like mom is hard on her daughter type of thing. And she loved her dad. And she would go back and visit. Like when she saw her mom, that made me sad and that made me cry.
When she was older,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And
that
she's
broke
like,
my
she wanted
heart.
to go in the room, but she's like, I knew. I could see his wood shop and like she knew her dad was gone.
Yeah,
And then she found out how soon after she left that her dad had passed away. And that's just got to be weird when her mom is like, "Do I
yeah,
know you?" And she's like, "No."
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it broke my heart.
Yeah.
But I loved how she kind of was like, you know what, it would be her.
Yeah.
Seeing how hard her mom was,
Hmm.
just be like, yeah, she would be the one.
Yeah.
You know what really made me sad is when the tree was cut down.
Me too.
Or it wasn't, yeah, because like a lightning strike or
She thought
something.
Luke did it.
Correct.
And it's just, I always think of like Richard Pryor when I think of Luke sometimes when he's like, "Devil's a low and Jack." He would come to her when he knew her heart was broken. He's like, "I know your heart." And same thing with Henry. He could feel it when people are at their lowest, and that's when he goes.
Yeah.
And he told her like, "I can be cruel, but nature is crueler than I ever could be. Like I didn't
Yes.
do this."
And that was finger snacks.
Yes. As much as she, the hard relationship she had with her mom, and then as much as she loved her dad, it seemed like she was more keen on going and visiting Estelle than she was her parents. She would go put a little something on their graves, but then she would go and actually spend time with Estelle. So it was because I feel like she was the only one who saw her when she was younger. And when I think about her wedding day, and it's just when her mom is like, "You go and you be a good wife. This is what you have to do." When her dad is like, "You're gonna go be a good wife and everything will be okay." I know it's a different time, but just mentally, I guess I have a hard time thinking about a dad forcing his daughter to get married, knowing that she doesn't want to marry someone. But again, that was the 1700s, and that's like what they
It was your
did back
duty.
then.
Yeah.
So it was weird too because it seemed like she had kind of gotten out of it. Like it almost seemed like she was going to end up being like Estelle, never married, never have any kids. And the woman dies during childbirth. This man is left a single father of 3 kids.
Yeah.
And she's, hey, well, you got to jump in and take care of these kids. It's like, those are my kids, like, wow.
I'd be mortified. I
What a
probably would
time.
have ran in the forest too.
As we meet Addie's many lovers, Remy stands out as the first man who lived up to her girlhood fantasies. On the magical night they met, Addie was dressed in a pair of trousers, a button coat, and a tricorn hat. How did her disguise as Thomas stoke their passion?
Not forbidden fruit, but like the mystery of
A woman that would dress up as a man?
yeah,
Yeah.
like who is she?
Mhm.
Because nobody would dare, you
Mhm.
know, and why would you? And just the whole thing, I think, was attractive and alluring.
I agree. I think for him, and then when they went to the coffee shop, it ended up speaking. It was her first time in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And she's looking around like, wow, it must be really cool to be a man. Look what you
Yeah.
guys get to do. and this is why I dress up the way that I do, but when his friends, I think he like bumped into her or something, and she said that she realized when he saw in her face that she was a woman, and she's kind of like hoping he wouldn't blow her cover, and he didn't. I thought that was cool.
He also, like, he broke her, it's not a bottle of wine. She had some, like a picnic basket, and
Yeah.
he made her drop, I
Mm-hmm.
think it was a bottle of wine or
I
something.
think it was bread or something, maybe.
Yeah, something that broke on the ground, and I think she was like, "You stupid idiot," or something, and he was like,
You fool. I noticed
yeah,
that
you
because she
fool.
bumped into another woman at some point and was, you fool. I was like, if I bumped into someone and they were like, you fool, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Just like maybe different times or whatever. But maybe that's how it is in France. I don't know.
Oh, no.
It just seemed like everyone got called foolish when they did something like on accident. But Remy was one of the first times when I think I got like wistful or emotional in the book, because she had this great night with him.
Mm-hmm.
He seemed awesome. The next morning he didn't remember her.
Yeah.
And she said that he had his head down and just like gave her some money and was like payment.
But he was also ashamed of himself, which I think spoke to his character. That
Correct.
He was like, I wouldn't do this.
Right.
Like, I'm not just bringing somebody home. Like,
right.
What? Who are you?
He was ashamed. He was embarrassing himself, which made her feel even worse.
Right.
Because, like, we had a great time, Like, we connected, and that's got to be rough.
And I love that people who she had these connections with, she would try to go back and see them later. Mm-hmm. Like, to be able to go back and see him while he was a successful writer, I think is, like, that was very touching. He was, like, in his 50s or something. And
she saw him. That was very Benjamin Button to me, where she doesn't age. Well, Benjamin Button ages in reverse, but it's like, you look the same as you always did. And then you see this guy, you remember what he looked like in his 20s, and now you see him as a 50-year-old. And people age, and that's just kind of like, damn,
I mean, I feel like that now when I see certain actors or musicians. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, I remember when I was a kid.
Right.
And you were, just a teenager.
Yeah.
And now,
it is.
You get these people who I grew up with that are, looking aged.
How do Addie's and Henry's deals with Luke compete with each other? The freedom of eternal youth paired with perpetual impermanence. Constant acceptance paired with the obliteration of the true self. If you could receive one of their curses for just 24 hours, which would you choose?
I would definitely choose Addie's every single time.
Agreed.
Like, there's nothing about Henry's that was appealing to me, but I also don't yearn for that.
Right.
So I think it's easy, like, if anything, Addie resonates with me a little bit more, just wanting to have that freedom versus wanting to be loved and accepted and adored by people.
Do you think Addie really loved Henry, or do you think it was more of a convenience thing, like, I love him because he is the only person who can remember me?
I think her heart was really with Luke, having had all that history. And just having a relationship with somebody where she just really was 110% herself.
Correct. Yeah.
Flaws and all. Like, he has seen her at her worst. Henry, I think she cared for him deeply, but obviously we saw the choice that she made was, I think it was more of her doing something for somebody who was a really good person and deserved to live.
Right.
Not necessarily out of passionate love.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I think Henry taught her that there's different types of love. I do think that she loved him, but it wasn't like you said, like a passionate love that she had with Luke. It was more of an appreciation love and like a deserving love. And
because she still wasn't 100% transparent with Henry. Like, there were still secrets and things that she kept from him.
I feel like she was pretty open with him.
There were certain things she said she didn't tell him.
Yeah.
Certain stories that she was just like, that's it for now.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to go into all those details. Yeah. But with this one person, with Luke, she didn't have to keep any of that. Like, he knew it all.
That's the weird thing. So that part in the book where she's like, you just like want this. And he's like, want? This is need. Like, if I just wanted you, I would have been done with you a long time ago. Like, I felt like the author did a very good job of showing you all the shit that Luke was, but then still humanizing him enough to where you can not understand where he's coming from, but
he's a demon.
Correct, yeah.
At a point, you feel like he's just a man and not this supernatural entity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm so glad she wrote this book. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you recommended it because it's not something that I would have picked out. And I told you I didn't read the description first. The first thing I did when I got the book, I put it on hold, and once it came available, I listened to it, and Estelle's quote starts out the book. You know, don't answer to the guy. And I was like, what is this about? And that's when I looked at it and I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad. I'm so glad she wrote the book. I'm so glad it's out in the world. And people are asking for a sequel, and she says, no, this is a standalone book. I will never, ever, ever write a sequel to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I love that.
Same.
Because I feel like she could pick up, she could go into more detail about what Addie's doing now, but the fact that she's not, I love.
It needed to end, and it needs to end right where it is. Do you think that this could be a movie?
They're making it a movie.
Oh, they are? Oh, did you tell me that? I don't know. Maybe I didn't know.
I think so. So, I don't know. Listening to this author I don't necessarily agree with her. She also said, too, so she modeled Henry after her own personality, which I thought was interesting.
That is interesting.
She's also LGBTQ, which explains that.
Okay.
And apparently the book has been blocked from different things because of all the sexual partners that Addie has had, the fact that there's been men and women. It's like 300 years is a long time, you know what I mean? And no one remembers her either, so I could see people think that she's like slutting it up, I guess, but at the same time...
300 years.
300 years, that's a long time.
What else are you going to do?
Seems like she can't do anything else.
Yeah.
No. But,
she's got no house, she's got no job, she's got nothing. All she does is read and date.
But people thought it was racy for that reason, which it didn't even go into great detail. Like, it just insinuated things.
Yeah.
I think the guy mounting it, I think that was the most explicit, and that's not even technically explicit. But that was the most like straightforward thing that I thought was said in the book. But I don't know. Apparently people have that feeling about it. So they are making a movie about this. And you know how you and I are pretty much on the same page as far as like, if you're not going to make it exactly like the book, don't even bother. Because what we have in our heads from what we gathered for the book is what I want to see on screen. Don't take this and just put your own little Hollywood twist on it. She said that she believes that a book and a movie should be in conversation with each other, but they should not be direct replicas, because a great movie and a great book are not the same thing. While I don't agree with that, I respect her, you know. I don't really think she has a choice either when she signs it over. I don't really know how that works, but...
I think they do, depending on how they work out their contracts, because there are some authors who are like direct consultants on set helping.
Well, from my understanding, that's what she's doing. But she said that she read the script. In my head, I'm like, the book is the script. Like, there's your script right there.
That's what I always imagined. That's why I didn't understand why sometimes the movies are so different. But that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It was just interesting to get another perspective. But
I might not watch it. Like, I haven't watched Where the Crawdads Sing.
I haven't either. The reason why I haven't is because in a preview, we all know that when Kaya gets arrested, like, she doesn't say anything. Because me as a reader, I'm like, tell them you didn't do it. Like, I know you're quiet. I know you don't talk, but you're in jail. Like, tell them. She wouldn't. In the preview, she was like in a jail cell and they're talking to her and she's talking back. And when I saw that preview, I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Because that alone is what made her her.
Right.
So the fact that and again, as a reader, I'm like, talk. It's what I wanted her to do, but I respected her not doing it because she stayed true to character.
Yeah.
That's
a total shift from the character of the person in the book. Because even like 50 Shades of Grey, I never watched that. I read the book.
I remember that was a really big deal at the time. I never read the book or saw the movie. Was that like as explicit as people made it sound?
The book?
Yeah.
I would say the first book, yes. But that's also because you're just really getting exposed to this kind of life of having like a romantic contract with somebody, and then being in a very submissive, dominant relationship.
Okay.
But the rest of the books are more about the relationship.
Okay.
Like the emotional aspect of it versus like the intimacy of it is more on. So book 1, yeah.
Okay.
And then after that it gets kind of. But I didn't watch the movie for that. And then
the last thing he told me.
Correct. I'm not gonna watch the movie. So chances are I probably won't watch the movie, just because like 50 Shades of Grey, the moment they said they were coming out with a movie, I was like, huh, this might be interesting. But the actors that they chose is not how I pictured the characters when I read the books. So, and that happens a lot. You know, it's not like in my head, I'm picking somebody who I've seen before. It's just based on how they describe, I create a picture of this person.
Right.
And then when I see something that's just not at all what I pictured, I'm like, no, this is already starting off where, and not that anybody would know what's in my head.
Right.
But I just, yeah. So chances are I probably wouldn't read it. I mean, watch it.
I think I do want to watch it. I actually, as we sit here and talk about this, if I go and watch the movie, it's not going to ruin the book for me. The book is still going to be what it is. I think if anything, I'm like, y'all could have just saved that and not even made it a movie. I don't know. I kind of want to watch. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should pick one and watch it and see what we think. Because it's not going to ruin the book. The book is the book.
No, it's not for the sake of it ruining the book. Like, I was really annoyed at the help for the last few minutes being very different.
Correct.
I think it's just, I want to savor
your idea.
Yeah, my idea of the interpretation of this book. And I feel like sometimes when they start leaving things out, like we talked about this off camera, there's things that happen when you're reading a book or listening to an audiobook that they're able to go into more detail that you just aren't getting from a movie.
Right.
You know, somebody really talking about how they feel. You can only insinuate based on their facial expressions and their actions how they feel. So you're just really missing a lot of the connection that you, like that opportunity that you can establish with the characters when you're reading or consuming the content in audio or book.
From what I saw of the previews, Jennifer Garner plays in The Last Thing He Told Me.
They said she did a
From
really
the
good
previews,
job.
it seemed like it followed the book. So I might start with that one just to see. Laura Dave, who wrote that book, has another one coming out. So I'll have to add that to our list.
I didn't like the way that book ended.
I know you said that. I liked it. I liked how quick it was. It was the
that's
first.
What I didn't like.
It was the first in its genre that I have read. So I think there's probably always going to be a special place for me. So Where the Crawdads Sing is like the first book like that I read that really focused on nature and that was fiction, and because like I said, I tend to lean towards self-help and things like that. So aside from the fact that being a really good book and a New York Times bestseller, I just think it's always going to have a special place with me. Addie LaRue is the first fantasy book I've ever read.
Really?
Yeah. And oddly enough, she said this is her first, she's written like 20 books or something. I'll have to show it to you off camera because I don't want to butcher it, but she's a fantasy writer. And this is a fantasy book, but it's totally different from the stuff she normally writes.
Gotcha.
So she even said, if you're like an avid follower of me, I just hoped that, like she thought writing Addie LaRue might hurt her career because it's so different from anything else she's ever done before.
No, it was a phenomenal book.
It was a phenomenal book.
It's been on my to-read book list for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, not a long time, but definitely at least a year. I think I think I came across it on Book Talk. Probably sometime last year, and I just started adding things to my read later list. And so then when we were going over stuff, and it's like, what about this?
Yeah.
And I was really happy that you were interested, and I'm really excited that you enjoyed it so much.
I loved it.
Because I know we're gonna come across some books that we just don't enjoy.
Yeah.
But that's just, you know,
it'll happen.
Yeah.
Something she said too, during one of her interviews, someone asked her how she felt when people give a bad review and then tag the author. I didn't know that was a thing. If people are doing that, that's a really shitty thing to do. Because here's the thing. I know I just said the word dud, and that was probably inappropriate. So even if I don't like a book, I respect the creativity and the thought that goes into writing a book. It is not an easy thing to just come up with these characters and create these worlds, and especially a book like that where it spanned the course of 300 years. She had to put in all these different historical elements and things like that. If it's not your jam, it's fine, but don't write a really mean review, ripping it to shreds, and then tag the author so they can see it. Like, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
I just respect other people's creativity. If it wasn't for you, then hey, it wasn't for you.
Right.
But I just thought that was wild that that's even a thing that people
I'm
would
not surprised. People do that all the time, just in social media in general. They just tag people because they want, once you tag them, then it kind of like sinks it.
I don't know. I just thought that was really messed up.
Well, we're going to wrap up, but before we do, I have a gift for you.
Oh, is this why you're...
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I got you
Oh,
a reading journal.
Thank you. I love it.
I got myself one too, so that we can start tracking, because we do pretty much all of our reading and audiobooks through our local library apps. So it's all electronic, which makes it a little bit difficult, like for note taking and keeping track of the things, which is, we have our phones out.
It would be cool to have a physical book to hold up, but we don't know if we're going to like it.
Right.
And ain't nobody trying to buy all these books.
Exactly.
Right.
We're not going to go and buy all these books and just have bookshelves of just books.
Right.
We are avid pro, borrow it from your library, get it for free, and then it just returns itself, and you don't have to spend any money. That's the purpose of the library.
That is the purpose of the library.
Tax money is paying for it.
Real
so
talk,
use
I
it.
probably will buy this book. Like, I will add to my book collection books that I know I love. And I'm a rereader. I know a lot of people aren't.
To reread.
I don't mind rereading. So these are things that I would do. But I used to just buy books that I thought would be cool. Some of them I haven't even read yet.
Same.
Some of them I ended up
just
donating or giving it away. For you to
Yeah.
make that collection, I need to know what's a good one. And that's after cleaning and organizing. But yeah, very pro library over here.
We will see you at our anniversary episode. And we're going to, so it's not going to be necessarily like all book club.
Right.
It'll be book club and then incorporate other things that we're going to be doing for our celebrating our anniversary. Yeah. Yep. So the next book that we are going to read is the 13th episode, which is by, do you remember the author's name?
I thought it was, is it episode 13?
Episode 13.
Yes, episode 13 by Craig DeLuey.
Yes, by Craig DeLuey. So that is a suspenseful thriller themed book. Since it will be our October book club, we figured we would get a book that's a little spooky season.
Yeah.
Neither one of us know anything about this book. We just picked some books that, or not some books, we picked it from a list of like books that were recommended for like fall, October theme. Yep. So hopefully we all like it.
We hope so. And again, like Tashima mentioned in the beginning of the episode, please share any book recommendations you have. We are pretty much open to anything and broadening our horizons. We'll take a look and all be able to share it together. And be sure to leave your comments on The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Let us know what you thought.
Yeah. I mean, there will be some books that you might recommend that one of us has already read. We won't pick books that either one of us have already read.
Right.
Because, I mean, that would be, I know you like to reread, but I don't. So you're on your own when it comes to stuff I've already read. But also just give us just some book recommendations in general, and we'll share some of ours too, because there's lots of books that you've read.
I've ruined
that
a book
spoiled for me.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap it up in a second. So 2 books that Maggie recommended. One is The Silent Patient, which I've been doing some digging on books, and that one keeps coming up.
I think you should listen to it anyway.
I know, but the ending is like the part that just makes the whole thing a plot twist, and now that I know it, it's just, I don't. Anyway, but we're not going to ruin that for you. And then the other book is The Housemaid. I've seen that a lot on a lot of book talk episodes. The Maid?
The Maid.
Oh, I thought it was The Housemaid. Are you sure? Is the lady looking through the peephole on the cover of the book? It's like a blue book with a peephole, and there's like an eye looking
No, I know what you're talking about, and I get them confused. Hang on, if I see the cover, I'll know. But they are 2 separate books, The Maid and The Housemaid.
Yeah. So
no, I read The Maid.
Oh, The Maid. Let me see the cover.
The Maid is the one that red one is the one that I did. I have not read that, so we can read that.
Okay. I've heard a lot about The Housemaid.
Let me read it. Have I read this? Let me read the synopsis real quick. Yeah. I have heard a lot about The Housemaid too.
That's supposed to be a really, really good book. So that's not the one you were telling me about?
I have read this one too. I didn't tell you about this one though. I told you about The Maid. I've read The Housemaid, but I haven't told you anything about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, then I'm going to check that book out.
I haven't ruined it for you. How about that?
Finally.
No spoilers.
Yeah, so check those books out if you haven't. We won't read them for book club, but those are 2 books that I keep seeing are really, really good. And then just let us know what you're reading.
Yeah.
All right, besties. Well, thank you so much. And I don't even know. I just love that we're doing this.
This was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for
indulging
joining
us. For our regular listeners, if you weren't into this, sorry.
But thank you for sticking around.
Yes.
All right, we will see you in the next episode. And like, subscribe, share, per the usual. All right, bye.
Bye.